Framed for a crime he didn't commit, a billionaire's world collapses overnight, leaving him with no one except the woman he betrayed 6 months ago. When he shows up at her door begging for help, neither of them realize the truth they're about to uncover, because his fall wasn't an accident. It was a revenge story 15 years in the making, and the twist will shock you. The city lights blur 40 stories below as champagne bubbles catch the first golden rays of dawn. A hand reaches for the glass, diamond cufflinks catching the light, while a voice on speakerphone confirms what everyone said was impossible: a $2 billion acquisition, closed before breakfast. The penthouse suite smells like success, like leather and expensive cologne, like the kind of wealth that makes problems disappear with a single phone call. But not every problem. On the computer screen, a woman's face fills the monitor during a video conference. She's holding a folder thick with documents, her expression carved from stone and determination. She's been talking for 3 minutes about irregular financial practices, about offshore accounts that don't add up, about transactions buried in subsidiary reports that someone hoped would never see daylight. Her voice is steady, professional, refusing to waver even as the temperature in the virtual room drops to Arctic. These discrepancies suggest systematic fraud, and as head of ethics compliance, I have a legal obligation to report. The hand that was holding champagne now hovers over the mouse. One click. That's all it takes to end careers, to silence inconvenient truths, to maintain the carefully constructed empire that took 15 years to build. The click echoes in the silence. You're fired. Security will escort you out within the hour. The woman doesn't flinch, doesn't argue, doesn't beg. She just looks directly into the camera with something worse than anger: disappointment. You'll regret choosing comfort over truth. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but you will. The screen goes black. That was 6 months ago. 6 months of forgetting her name, of dismissing her warnings, of believing that loyalty to the people who matter is worth more than honesty from people who don't. 6 months of living in a world where every surface reflects success, where the board applauds every quarterly report, where a fiancé plans a wedding that will make magazine covers, where a best friend and CFO celebrates another victory with expensive scotch and reminiscing about college dorm rooms and shared dreams. The quarterly reports arrive on a Tuesday. Something's wrong. The numbers dance in ways they shouldn't. Patterns emerge that feel like puzzle pieces forced into the wrong spaces. But before questions can form into accusations, before suspicions can harden into action, a phone buzzes with an emergency notification. Emergency board meeting. Mandatory attendance. 30 minutes. The walk into that boardroom should feel routine. 15 years of walking through these doors. 15 years of commanding this table. 15 years of being the smartest person in every room. But today, the air feels wrong, charged with something that tastes like conspiracy and smells like betrayal. The faces around the table won't make eye contact. The best friend, the college roommate who coded algorithms in a dorm room while eating ramen, the CFO who stood beside every triumph and every risk, he's sitting at the head of the table, in the wrong chair, in someone else's chair. Documents slide across polished mahogany, bank statements, transaction records, wire transfers to offshore accounts. Every single one bearing a digital signature that's been forged so perfectly that proving otherwise would require months of forensic analysis that nobody's willing to wait for. The board has voted, effective immediately. You're removed as CEO. All assets frozen pending investigation. Federal prosecutors have been notified. The words come from the CFO's mouth, from the best friend's lips, but his eyes are empty of everything except cold satisfaction. 15 years of friendship, of trust, of believing that loyalty runs deeper than ambition. It all disintegrates in the time it takes for a gavel to strike wood. David, you can't be serious. We built this together. Tell them. But David's already standing, already moving toward the door, already checking his phone like this is just another meeting, another Tuesday, another item checked off an efficient to-do list. The lawyers won't return calls. Their voicemails fill with excuses, with conflicts of interest, with the sound of rats fleeing a sinking ship. The phone keeps buzzing, reporters demanding comment, Investors demanding answers, business partners demanding distance, and then a text message, short and surgical, from a fiancé who promised forever just last week, "I can't do this. We're done. I'm sorry." The photo appears on social media an hour later. She's at Le Bernardin, laughing at something David's whispering in her ear, her hand resting on his arm with the comfort of familiarity, like this wasn't a sudden pivot, but a long-planned performance finally reaching its final act. 48 hours. That's how long it takes for an empire to crumble, for a life to dissolve, for every person who swore loyalty to vanish like smoke in wind. The penthouse becomes a crime scene, sealed with tape and crawling with federal agents who photograph every room like they're documenting a murder. The cars are impounded, the bank accounts frozen. The phone stops buzzing because everyone's blocked the number, because nobody wants to be associated with scandal, because in the world of billionaires and board meetings, reputation is the only currency that actually matters. Standing on a sidewalk with one suitcase and a phone full of unanswered calls, the city looks different, colder, bigger, indifferent to the man who once thought he owned pieces of it. The evening commuters flow past like water around a stone, nobody recognizing the face that was on the cover of Fortune just 3 months ago. Success is a terrible disguise. Strip it away and you're just another person the world doesn't see. The contacts list scrolls past hundreds of names. Colleagues who won't answer. Friends who were never really friends. Family that's been distant since the money made every conversation awkward. The scroll stops on a name buried deep in the deleted contacts, recovered from a cloud backup. Elena Reyes. The woman who got fired for being too honest. The woman who warned about the storm before it hit. The woman who looked at a billionaire and saw someone who needed to change, not someone who needed to be obeyed. Finding her address requires hacking into old HR files with credentials that should have been revoked but weren't, because even in betrayal there are glitches in the system. The apartment building sits in a neighborhood where success is measured in making rent on time, where luxury means having hot water and working heat, where nobody cares about quarterly earnings or hostile takeovers or which billionaire fell from grace this week. The knock on the door at midnight echoes in a narrow hallway that smells like cooking spices and old carpet. Footsteps approach slowly, cautiously, the way people walk when they're not expecting good news. The door opens 6 inches. Chain lock still engaged. She recognizes the face immediately, doesn't gasp, doesn't slam the door, just studies the disheveled suit, the single suitcase, the expression of a man who's run out of options and dignity in equal measure. "I know I have no right to be here. I know what I did to you, but I have nowhere else to go." The chain stays locked for a long moment, long enough to remember the humiliation of being escorted out by security. Long enough to recall the job search that followed. Long enough to calculate whether kindness is worth the risk of being burned twice by the same person. The chain slides free. The apartment is small enough to see every corner from the doorway. A couch worn soft by use. A kitchen table covered in coding textbooks and student papers. A life built on purpose instead of profit, on integrity instead of image. You can have the couch, one night, and then we talk about why you're really here. Sleep doesn't come easily on a couch that's too short, in an apartment where sirens replace the silence of penthouse isolation, where the ceiling fan rattles instead of purrs, where every comfort that money bought is replaced by the stark reality of how most people actually live. Morning brings the smell of coffee, cheap and strong, nothing like the single-origin artisan blend that used to arrive in biodegradable pods. She's already dressed for work, already moving through her routine, already making it clear that one night of charity doesn't erase 6 months of unemployment and struggle. "I looked into what happened to you. The news says you're guilty. The evidence says you're guilty. Everyone who knows you says you're guilty. So before we go any further, I need you to tell me the truth, and I'll know if you're lying. Did you do it?" The question hangs in the air like a judge's gavel waiting to fall, because this is the moment where everything changes, where the story splits into 2 different endings. Lie and disappear into the darkness of guilt and exile. Tell the truth, And maybe, just maybe, find the one person who might believe that innocence and stupidity can look exactly the same as fraud. No, I didn't do it. But I'm guilty of something worse. I was so arrogant, so sure of my own brilliance, that I never saw the knife until it was already in my back. She studies the face across her kitchen table, searching for the tells that liars always have, looking for the micro-expressions that separate performance from honesty. Whatever she sees makes her nod slowly. I believe you, but belief isn't enough. If you want my help, you're going to have to earn it, and that means becoming someone worth helping. What would you do if the only person willing to save you was the person you destroyed? Could you humble yourself enough to accept help from the enemy you created? And more importantly, what happens when you discover that your downfall wasn't random, but revenge 15 years in the making? Here's what nobody tells you about falling from the top. It's not the loss of money that destroys you. It's discovering that every relationship you had was a transaction, and the bill just came due. The couch becomes a classroom in humiliation. Wake at 6. Coffee that tastes like burnt rubber because cheap beans are all the budget allows. Toast without butter because butter is a luxury when you're counting every dollar. The bathroom mirror reflects a face that used to command boardrooms, now unshaven and hollow-eyed, wearing yesterday's shirt because the suitcase only held 3. She leaves for work at 7, her routine unchanged by the presence of a fallen titan sleeping on her furniture. There's a list on the counter. If you're staying, you're contributing. Rent is due Friday. Your share is $300. $300. The amount used to vanish in a single dinner, in one bottle of wine, in the tip for a valet who parked a car worth more than this entire apartment building. Now it's a mountain to climb with empty pockets and frozen accounts. The list reads like a sentence. Clean the apartment, do the laundry, fix the leaking faucet, and at the bottom, underline twice. Come to the community center at 6. You're teaching coding. Teaching. The word feels foreign, like a language forgotten in the pursuit of profit. But pride is a luxury for people who have options, and options disappeared the moment that boardroom door closed. The community center sits in a neighborhood where success means surviving, where ambition fights against circumstance, where dreams compete with the daily grind of just getting by. The room smells like industrial cleaner and hope, folding chairs arranged in crooked rows, a whiteboard covered in syntax from the previous class. She's already there, setting up laptops that have seen better years, greeting students who filter in wearing the exhaustion of people who work all day before coming here to learn at night, teenagers with eyes older than their years, single mothers still in work uniforms, former inmates with ankle monitors blinking beneath their jeans. This is her world, the people the system forgot, the ones who fell through cracks that billionaires never knew existed. Everyone, we have a guest instructor tonight. He's going to help with the Python module. The recognition comes slowly, then all at once. A teenager in the back row pulls out his phone, fingers flying across the screen, comparing the face at the front of the room to the face in news articles about fraud and betrayal and billionaires who stole from their own companies. Yo, you're that dude, the one who got arrested. The room goes silent. Every eye locked on the man at the whiteboard, waiting to see how a billionaire responds when stripped of everything except the truth. Not arrested, accused. There's a difference, though I understand why you wouldn't believe me. 6 months ago, I wouldn't have believed me, either. The teenager, his name tag reads Jamal, doesn't look away. So you here for community service? Court-ordered humility or something? I'm here because I have nowhere else to be, and because she, a gesture toward Elena, believes that people can change even when they don't deserve the chance. But here's the question that should terrify anyone who's ever trusted a friend. What do you do when you discover the person who destroyed you had been planning it longer than you'd been succeeding? The coding class becomes a mirror. These students, learning loops and functions and syntax, they're building something real with nothing but determination and borrowed laptops. Meanwhile, a former billionaire stands at a whiteboard, explaining concepts that used to seem beneath his brilliance. now realizing that teaching might be the first honest work he's done in years. After class, she doesn't congratulate or condemn, just hands over a flash drive. Your old credentials still work in the system. Whoever orchestrated this got sloppy. They revoked your admin access but forgot about the ethics compliance backdoor. We can look, but we have to be careful. If we're caught, I lose more than you do. The laptop screen glows in the darkness of her tiny living room. Code and spreadsheets scrolling past like archaeological layers of a crime. Transaction records buried in subsidiary reports. Shell companies nested inside shell companies. Money moving through channels designed to confuse and conceal. And then a pattern emerges. Small withdrawals, perfectly timed, spread across 2 years. Not enough to trigger alarms. Just enough to siphon millions into accounts that lead nowhere and everywhere at once. David started this before you even thought something was wrong. This wasn't opportunistic. This was calculated. Her fingers fly across the keyboard, pulling up archived emails, deleted calendars, digital breadcrumbs that nobody thought to sweep. And there, buried in metadata and timestamps, a revelation that turns blood to ice. Look at this. 3 days before I was scheduled to present my full ethics audit to the board, the one that would have uncovered all of this, you fired me. The memory surfaces like a body from deep water. David, leaning against the desk, casual as Sunday morning, mentioning concerns about Elena's performance. She's making serious accusations without evidence. It's affecting morale. Maybe it's time to make a change. And the response, swift and certain. Handle it. He knew I was close. He got me fired before I could expose him. And you, she turns, her expression a mixture of anger and pity. You were so convinced of your own judgment, so sure that loyalty mattered more than truth, that you became his perfect weapon. How do you apologize for being the loaded gun someone else fired? The apartment becomes a war room. Walls covered in printed spreadsheets, strings connecting names and dates, and transactions like a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. But this isn't paranoia. This is archaeology, digging through the ruins of trust to find the bones of betrayal. Days blend into nights. Elena works her day job, comes home to investigation, stays up until dawn chasing digital ghosts through blockchain records and encrypted servers. He teaches coding classes, cleans her apartment, learns the price of groceries and the value of a dollar earned through actual work instead of inherited algorithms. The students warm to him slowly, cautiously, the way people approach a wounded animal that might still bite. Jamal stays after class one night, hovering by the door with the uncertainty of someone weighing risk against curiosity. Why'd you do it? Like, you had everything. Why steal more? I didn't. But you want to know the truth? Even before the fraud, I was stealing. Not money, something worse. I stole credit for other people's ideas. I stole time from people who trusted me. I stole dignity from anyone who challenged me. David just made me pay for those thefts all at once. Jamal nods slowly, processing this confession like code that finally compiles. My dad's in prison for stealing food to feed us. Guess at least you're honest about it now. Redemption isn't earned through confession. It's built through the daily choice to be better than who you were yesterday. 3 weeks into the investigation, Elena finds the smoking gun. An archived email from David to the board, sent 2 years ago, marked confidential and buried so deep in the server that only someone with ethics compliance access could ever locate it. The subject line reads, "Concern about CEO's involvement in irregular transactions." The email details suspicious activity traced to the CEO's accounts. It suggests investigation. It plants seeds of doubt carefully, methodically, building a narrative over months and years that would bloom into perfect betrayal when the time came. He framed you slowly, so slowly that when the moment came, everyone already half believed you were capable of it. But the email reveals something else, something that turns the stomach and rewrites history. Attached to the email is a PDF, an old patent filing from 15 years ago. The original AI algorithm that built the empire. The one that was supposed to be co-authored by two college roommates working together in a dorm room. Only one name appears on the patent. The one now sleeping on Elena's couch. You stole from him first. The words hang in the air like an accusation and an explanation. The memory surfaces, unwanted and undeniable. Late nights in the dorm room, David writing code while ramen went cold. The breakthrough moment when the algorithm finally worked. And then the decision, justified by ambition and rationalized by arrogance, to file the patent alone. I'm better with business. I'll handle the paperwork. We'll sort out the details later. Later never came. He spent 15 years planning this, not just to take the company, to destroy you the way you destroyed his trust. This is revenge served cold enough to freeze. But here's the twisted irony. Can you claim innocence in your own destruction when you authored the first chapter of betrayal? The revelation should end the investigation. Should send a former billionaire back to his couch with the knowledge that consequences are just karma with better timing. But Elena keeps digging, keeps pulling threads, because revenge might explain motivation, but it doesn't justify fraud, doesn't excuse the collateral damage of employees who lost jobs and investors who lost fortunes. He's still guilty. You're not innocent. But the truth is more complicated than either story. The journalist meeting is set for Thursday. A business reporter with a reputation for taking down corrupt corporations. Someone who might actually listen before publishing. Someone who might help separate justice from revenge. Wednesday night, Elena works late at her day job. The apartment is empty except for the evidence covering every wall. The laptop with unencrypted files, the phone with recorded conversations, the flash drive containing 2 years of investigation. The knock at the door comes at 11, forceful, official, not asking permission, but demanding entry. The door swings open before a hand can reach the lock. 3 men, faces covered, moving with the efficiency of people who've done this before. They're not here for conversation. The laptop disappears into a bag. The papers ripped from walls, shredded and stuffed into pockets. The flash drive, sitting on the kitchen counter, vanishes into a gloved hand. 5 minutes. That's all it takes to erase months of work, to steal proof, to burn the only chance at justice. The text message arrives on a burner phone. Back off, or next time it's not just evidence we take. Elena comes home to destruction. The apartment looks like a crime scene, which is exactly what it is. She stands in the doorway, surveying the damage with the hollow expression of someone who's lost the same battle twice. Once 6 months ago when she got fired, and now again when trying to fight back. They took everything. The journalist cancels the meeting via email. Received a cease and desist from Chen Industries' legal team. Cannot proceed with story. Sorry. And then, the final blow delivered via phone call. Ms. Reyes, this is HR from Data Tech Solutions. We're calling to inform you that your employment has been terminated effective immediately. We're not able to provide details, but the decision is final. She doesn't cry, doesn't rage, just sits on the couch that's been a refugee camp for a fallen billionaire and stares at the wall where evidence used to hang like art in a gallery of broken dreams. You should go. I don't know why I thought I could fix this. I don't know why I believed you were worth saving. Maybe I'm the fool in this story. The truth cuts deeper than any accusation. She's lost her job, again, because of someone else's greed. She's lost her safety, her security, her careful life built on the ruins of the last time she tried to do the right thing. And for what? To help the man who fired her in the first place? You're right. You should have let me drown. The words come out hollow, defeated. The sound of a man finally accepting that some falls don't have landings. Just endless plummeting until the ground rises up to meet you. The night stretches long and silent. No words left to exchange. No comfort to offer. Just 2 people sitting in the wreckage of their investigation, their hope, their belief that truth might matter more than power. Morning comes cold and gray. The decision is made without discussion, acknowledged without argument. This is the end of the alliance, the conclusion of the foolish belief that justice and redemption could coexist in a world where billionaires play by different rules. The suitcase gets packed with the same 3 shirts, the same recognition that some stories don't have happy endings, just survivors crawling from wreckage to find another place to bleed. I'm sorry for all of it, for firing you, for dragging you into this, for being exactly the person you tried to warn me I was becoming. She nods, accepting the apology without forgiving it, acknowledging the words without absolving the speaker. Some wounds heal, others just stop bleeding. The door closes behind a former billionaire, now just a homeless man with a suitcase and nowhere to go. The park bench that used to be invisible, the one passed every morning during penthouse jogs without seeing the people sleeping there, now becomes a bedroom under stars that don't care about net worth or innocence, or the complicated mathematics of blame. But what if losing everything wasn't the end of the story? What if the darkest moment was just the beginning of understanding what actually matters? And what if the answer to betrayal wasn't revenge, but something more dangerous? The truth. What would you sacrifice to expose the truth, when exposing it means admitting you were never innocent to begin with? The park bench is harder than any bed ever slept in, cold seeping through expensive fabric now wrinkled and stained. The city sounds at 3 in the morning, a symphony of sirens and distant voices and the shuffle of other forgotten people finding their corners to survive the night. This is rock bottom with a view. The same park where morning jogs used to happen, where homeless faces blurred into scenery, where the distance between wealth and poverty seemed like an ocean instead of a single bad decision. But dawn brings something unexpected. Not hope, something smaller and more valuable. The community center opens early for a fundraiser, tables being set up by volunteers who don't get paid, who show up because community means something when you don't have anything else. And there, arranging donation bins with the careful attention of someone who knows every dollar matters, is Jamal. He spots the figure on the bench, recognizes the slumped shoulders and defeated posture, and does something that defies every logical response to a disgraced billionaire sleeping rough in a public park. He walks over, doesn't mock, doesn't lecture, just extends an invitation wrapped in simple human decency. We're doing a food drive. Could use an extra pair of hands if you're not busy. The sarcasm could cut, but it doesn't. It lands soft, like an offering instead of an insult. And in that moment, helping carry boxes of donated canned goods, sorting through clothes that other people gave because they understood what it meant to need help, something shifts. Not redemption. That's too grand a word for folding shirts and stacking soup cans. But perhaps understanding. Perhaps the first genuine moment of service in a life spent being served. The walk back to Elena's apartment happens without decision, driven by a realization that's been building through weeks of teaching coding and sleeping on couches and learning the price of groceries. Redemption isn't about getting your old life back. It's about earning a new one that might actually mean something. The knock on her door is softer this time, tentative. The knock of someone who no longer expects doors to open, but hopes anyway. She answers with eyes that haven't slept, still wearing yesterday's clothes. The apartment behind her still showing signs of the break-in, evidence of their destroyed investigation scattered like archaeological ruins. I'm not here to ask you to help me anymore. I'm here to apologize, really apologize. You were right about me 6 months ago. You were right about me yesterday. And even if I never clear my name, even if David wins everything, you changed me. That matters more than any company ever could. The words don't fix anything. Don't restore her job or undo the break-in or rewrite the past 6 months of struggle. But they land true, stripped of the performance that used to dress up every interaction in the penthouse world. She studies the face in her doorway, searching for the catch, the angle, the hidden agenda that people at the top always have, finds nothing but exhaustion and something that might be genuine transformation. I kept one thing. They didn't find everything. The flash drive emerges from behind a false panel in her bookshelf. the kind of hiding place you create when you've been burned before and learned to keep insurance. The blockchain records, they can't be stolen because they're not stored anywhere. They're part of the permanent ledger. David's transactions are still there, time-stamped and immutable. We lost the documentation, but we didn't lose the proof. But proof without a platform is just data. So how do you expose a billionaire who controls the narrative, owns the media connections, and has already proven he'll destroy anyone who gets close to the truth? The answer comes from an unexpected source, from teaching coding to teenagers, from understanding that the new world doesn't run on corporate press releases and carefully managed PR campaigns. The new world runs on social media, on viral moments, on truth that spreads faster than lawyers can file cease and desist orders. We can't out-lawyer him or outspend him, but we can outsmart him. David has one weakness. He can't resist proving he's the smartest person in the room, especially to me. The plan takes shape over coffee that's still cheap but tastes less bitter when shared with purpose. A public video posted from an anonymous account showing a defeated billionaire conceding everything, admitting David was always smarter, always deserved the credit, always should have been the one on magazine covers. An invitation to meet one final time, to sign over the last remaining intellectual property rights, to surrender with whatever dignity remains. The bait is ego wrapped in humiliation. Irresistible to someone who spent 15 years planning revenge, who wants the final scene to match the betrayal that started it all. David agrees within an hour. The meeting set for Friday. Chen Industries headquarters. The old office with the view of the city, where this all began with a firing and a warning that went unheeded. Elena wears a wire that costs $50 from a spy shop that mostly sells to suspicious spouses. The audio won't be perfect, but it doesn't need to be. It just needs to be real. The former ethics team, those employees David sidelined and betrayed while building his fraud, they listen remotely, recording everything, ready to be witnesses if the confession actually comes. The office looks the same. Same view, same desk, different man sitting behind it, wearing the success like a borrowed suit that almost fits. David's smile is pure triumph, the expression of someone who's waited 15 years to savor this exact moment. I always knew you'd come crawling back. You always underestimated me. Even in college, taking credit for my algorithm, my code, my breakthrough, you thought I was too weak to fight back. The words need to be drawn out carefully, like venom from a wound. You deserved credit. I was wrong to file that patent alone. But this, destroying innocent employees, ruining investors, framing me for crimes you committed, this isn't justice. David leans back, comfortable in the throne that was stolen, confident in his victory. Justice? You want to talk about justice? I spent 15 years watching you get everything that should have been mine. Every interview, every award, every article calling you a genius, all of it built on my work. So yes, I siphoned money. Yes, I fabricated evidence. Yes, I turned your precious fiancée and your entire board against you. And it was so easy because deep down, everyone knew you were capable of it. You trained them to expect betrayal. The confession spills out like poison finally released. 15 years of resentment wrapped in admission. Ego demanding acknowledgement even at the cost of guilt. The best part? Even now, even knowing all this, you can't prove any of it. Your evidence is gone. Your credibility is destroyed. And I own everything, including this moment. But pride makes people forget about phones, about wires, about the fact that in the digital age, nothing stays private for long. The live stream is already broadcasting, the audio feeding to platforms that don't require permission or corporate approval. David's confession spreading in real time to thousands, then tens of thousands, then trending worldwide before his lawyers can even draft a response. The board watches from their own devices. The FBI gets notification from 3 different sources simultaneously. The media that crowned him now scrambles to cover his fall, the same cycle of rise and destruction playing out on a different billionaire, proving that height of the pedestal only determines the impact of the landing. David's face goes from triumph to realization to rage in the span of a breath. What did you do? I learned from the best. You taught me that the rules are different at the top. I'm just applying the lesson to a different game. The arrests happen fast. Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. The fiancée who traded loyalty for luxury finds herself implicated. Her tell-all interview now evidence of her knowledge and complicity. The board offers reinstatement immediately, full apology, complete restoration of reputation and wealth and power. The old office waits, empty and ready. The view of the city exactly as it was 6 months ago. 40 stories of distance between the penthouse and the people who actually build things. But 6 months of sleeping on couches and teaching coding and learning the price of eggs changes perspective. The offer gets a counteroffer. Join Chen Industries not as CEO, but as head of ethical innovation. Let someone else run the empire, someone who never lost sight of why it mattered in the first place. Elena becomes CEO. Not because of charity or guilt, but because she's the only one who never compromised truth for convenience, who understood that real innovation requires integrity, who proved that you can be brilliant and honest simultaneously. The final scene mirrors the first, but everything's different. Not a penthouse, but a modest office. Not champagne, but cheap coffee shared between colleagues who've earned trust through fire. Not a company built on stolen algorithms and moral shortcuts, but a foundation being rebuilt on transparency and accountability. The coding class continues every Tuesday and Thursday. The students aren't props for redemption. They're people worth investing in, worth teaching, worth treating like they matter because they do. And somewhere between the bankruptcy and the rebuilding, between losing everything and finding what actually counts, a former billionaire discovers that wealth was never measured in bank accounts. It lives in the teenager who learns to code and escapes poverty, in the colleague who believed redemption was possible when nobody else did, in the choice, made daily, to be honest even when lying would be easier. So here's the question I'll leave you with. If you lost everything tomorrow, your money, your status, your carefully constructed image, what would be left? Who would show up? And more importantly, who would you become when the mask finally breaks? Drop your answer in the comments, because the truth about who we really are only shows up when we can't afford to pretend anymore. And if this story made you think differently about success, about betrayal, about what actually matters when everything else burns away, hit that subscribe button, because the stories that change us are the ones worth sharing.